Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is games leaving the collection for the month of November. As usual, before we dive into it, and timestamps and everything down below, a bunch of disclaimers and things to talk about before we get into all the games. Starting off with one, I get a lot of games, I review a lot of games, I play a lot of games, over a game a day on average, and that does mean that I can't keep everything. So do not take this video as a condemnation of the games leaving the collection. Practically speaking, I only can keep 10 to 15% of what I play, and even then, half of those will filter out over time. Just consider this the natural selection process of trying to choose the ones that most resonate with myself. Number two, some of these games are going to be given away over on Patreon. If you are a patron of the channel, first of all, thank you, I appreciate it. And additionally, every month I give away a few extra games over to Patreon, some at higher levels and some just no matter what level if you are a Patreon. So don't join Patreon just to get free games, but if you do value and appreciate the content, I appreciate anyone who signs up, and there also can be free games along the way. With that, let's go ahead and start off, and there are a lot of games to go through this month. I think I have 23 games to go through, as usual, a mix of old and new, a bunch of games that I sat down, I played, I got through, I reviewed, and I made decisions to whether it stays or goes, and then others that have been around for quite some time, some that have been, well, let's go ahead and get into it. Before we spend too much time talking about all the things we're getting to, let's just get to it instead. Starting off with Kōhaku. Kōhaku for 20th Century Games is it's a light point-scoring optimization game where you're gathering various tiles, gathering various koi fish and various features, and combining them to score as many points as possible. The core principle is simple. Grab 2 tiles every turn, layer them together in ways that will score as many points as possible. Ultimately, I think Kōhaku is charming, it's well done, it's a great gateway game in the realm of point-scoring, tile-laying optimization. I just think there are other games that, for me, do it with a bit more interesting decision space behind it. Games like Cascadia, Calico, those are constantly going to be some of the ones I constantly hold up as games to beat, and it's definitely true with Kōhaku. Kōhaku is a good game, I like it, I also don't feel the need to keep it, but it is a great gateway game. We have Glass Road over here from Uwe Rosenberg. This is a hard one. This is an older title that's been around for quite some time. It's been in my collection for a very long time, and I think Glass Road is excellent. I think at one point it was even in like the top tiers of my top 100. I like Glass Road a lot. I think it's an excellent game that gives you resource manipulation as you try to utilize the buildings and try to buy the best combination of buildings as you try to utilize your various handful of cards to try to predict what other players will do or not do in the game. I think it is a great game, a genuinely great game. I've had this in my collection for, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, for a long time in the board game space. Ultimately, I feel it doesn't get played as often these days, and with so many Uwe Rosenberg games crowding my shelves asking me for their attention, sometimes games that you love but don't play as much as you used to are ready to go, and that's the case for Glass Road. It's a great game, it really is. Like, I reviewed it maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when Capstone Games, I think it was Capstone, came out with a reprint on it, but I've had it in my collection for years. I made some hard decisions this month. I do this thing every once in a while where I play a game that I really love, and usually it's me playing like Vindication or Rurik Dawn of Kiev or Too Many Bones, and when I play some of these games that I really truly love, I'll wander around my shelves in like a fit almost, like trying to like desperately find things that I know I like, but I don't like as much as I like other games, and so that's what happened to Glass Road. That's also what happened to Tribune. Now, Tribune, I mean, I had a friend, a member of my game group, who saw this on my cull pile this past week, and he was shocked. He was like, he wants to take it, by the way. This, by the way, in case you're joining for Patreon to get, giveaway stuff or whatnot, this one's already taken because my friend decided to take this one. But this has been in my collection for a long time. It's been a favorite of our game group for a long time. Ultimately, the game group we used to have doesn't really exist in the same way it used to anymore. And so Tribune doesn't really get played anymore. And I think that over enough time of not playing Tribune, I've seen some of the flaws of the game as much. And I think it's a great game. I think it's a great game. It's a 4 to 5 for me easily. But it's still a game that, over enough time not playing it, I think I'm kind of ready to move on. You see, I think Tribune is divided into 2 areas. There's the worker placement aspect where you put down your people in different zones and try to go ahead and gather cards in different ways. It's a lot of fun. But then the entire fiddliness of how you win and the different ways you can combine points to win or different scoring objectives, I think sometimes it ends up feeling a little fiddly and a little forced in the certain lanes you're forced down in order to win. But I still think it's excellent. I think it's amazing. It was definitely one of those games that came off the shelf reluctantly with the knowledge that I got some hard I get some hard choices this month, and 2 or 3 games that count as like cheating, but we'll get to that soon enough. In any case, in some smaller box titles over here, we have Hedgehog Hop up here. In fact, let's go ahead and grab some games from this set over here. We have Hedgehog Hop, we have Squirrel or Die, and we have Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber. Now from these over here, Hedgehog Hop I've played and I've reviewed. It may or may not be up. In general, many of these games might be in reviews that I may have filmed some of these reviews who knows how long ago, and reviews get staggered on my channel. I'm just trying to keep up always. But we have a Hedgehog Hop, which is these are all 3 from the same set over here. and I like from fighting the box games. Hedgehog Hop is a charming game of sliding cards onto the table to try to score based on the last card in your hand. I think it's fun, I think it's charming, I don't think it's a keeper for me, it's just a fun, charming experience. Squirrel or Die was a complete pass for me, did not like this one bit, it just feels like you're turning over cards, guessing on things, wasn't for me at all. And Mouse, Cheese, Cat, Cucumber, this one I unfortunately read the rules and just have not been able to table in who knows how long, and I'm just not as excited about it. And so this one I'm intrigued by. This one's an asymmetric, four different. I think part of the problem is this game looks like it would thrive at 4 players, and I just don't think this is going to make the cut at a 4-player game night. There's so many games that I'm always backlogged on once you get to a 3 or 4 players or 5 players. 1, 2, or 3, 0. Well, 1, 2 players is very easy for me. 3 players is easy enough, and once you get to 4 or 5, it's hard to table games, and so at least for me, it's hard to table games with the right groups. And so Mouse, Cheese, Cat, Cucumber is just not going to get prioritized. So one good game, but not a keeper. One game that I'm intrigued by, but didn't play, and one game that was not for me in the smaller box series over here. We have Captain Carcass, another game that's been around for quite some time, and Captain Carcass is delightful. It's based on Dead Man's Draw. It's the same game. It's Dead Man's Draw, Captain Carcass. I think there's another name for it as well. There's a few versions or iterations of this game, but they're all ultimately a push-your-luck experience where you're drawing cards and trying to pull them into your zone, but if you draw too many cards, then you'll bust. If you draw too many of the same type, you'll bust. So think similar to Ink and Gold. And like Ink and Gold, I think it's a fun time. I think it's one of my better push your luck games in the collection. Ultimately, a better push your luck game that doesn't really get played that often. It's been maybe 4 years since I pulled this off the shelf, and so as much as I enjoy Captain Carcass, unlike Can't Stop, which does hit the table. Can't Stop is so simple, so easy, that if I want that lightweight game, I'll play Can't Stop. If I want something that's in this vein as Captain Carcass, I'm probably going to play Cockroach Poker nowadays. And so it falls into an interesting zone where I really, really like the game, but also just not getting played in quite some time. Then we have the first of 2 games that I'm kind of cheating on, which is Hanamikoji over here. That's because Hanamikoji is not leaving my collection. It is never leaving my... Well, never is a strong word. Never is a strong word. See, never is... I'm curious. I one time did a video of like games that will never leave my collection. And in that video I started by saying there's no such thing as a game that will never leave my collection. There's just the games that I currently think will never leave my collection. And it's hard to always say for what hits that category, because even just now looking at my shelves over here, I think Aquatica will never leave my collection. I think Whistle Mountain might leave my collection. Coimbra I think will never leave my collection. The Loop I think will never leave my collection. My City, I think I could get burnt out on that one over time. I have like 200 plays in my belt, but I could get burnt out over time. Lacrimosa, I think that could leave. Esoterial City of Spies, I'm skeptical to believe it would leave, but maybe. Keystone North America, I can see that leaving. Meaning, in other words, even if I love a game, and even if it's in my collection right now, there's a point where I'm like, no, this will never leave. And then even then, sometimes I'm wrong. That is the nature of time and processing and playing games more and seeing where it fits. But Hanamikoji, I think will never leave my collection. But I have the big box Hanamikoji. I got the whole deluxe edition from like their last Kickstarter campaign, and so this one can easily leave and be gifted on to the next person. I didn't even realize until recently. I was going through my shelves and I was like, I still have another Hanamikoji. Why do I have 2 Hanamikojis? And so that one's probably going to enter the Level Up Retreat library. By the way, speaking of which, most of these games, if you're wondering where they go, the ones that aren't given away to friends or alternatively Patreon over on Patreon, most of the rest of these will go to the Level Up Retreat library, which is actually going to be happening this February, by the way. Level Up Retreat is going to be happening this February. There's either already a video on the channel or will be a video on the channel, but make sure to stay tuned for that and sign up if you are interested in attending that. And then the games that I don't think are even that good at all, those will leave. So, for example, like Squirrel or Die, I don't think that's going to go in the Level Up Retreat library because I don't feel it was good enough to be there. So the games that are just not good, I don't feel the need to put them into a library. Anyways, moving on from there, we have, let's go with a new one, newish one, which is Bitoku. Bitoku from Devere Games. I've already reviewed this on the channel, as well as the expansion, Recitauron over here. And Bitoku is a genuinely excellent game. This is an easy addition to the Level Up Retreat library, because Bitoku is fantastic. It is a heavy Euro game, midweight, medium-heavy Euro game, that is going to give you a ton of choices, and my biggest problem with Bitoku is just that I don't think it's a game I want to teach. I think Bitoku is a game that I appreciate what it's doing. I know I appreciate what it's doing. I think it does an excellent job at giving you a crunchy decision space as far as how to optimize your score in the game. But for me, it's one that really shines once you get multiple plays in your belt, and it just has so much going on as far as the teach of the game, and so much going on in a way that I don't know if I'm in a rush to teach new players. Bitoku is a game I would always happily play. Well, always is a stretch, but I would generally happily play it with people who know the game. But it's not one I want to teach to new people just because of how much stuff is going on, and it gives you the mental load Like, just to give you an example, using Coimbra and Bitoku. Coimbra and Bitoku, I think Coimbra gives me a similar level of thinkiness, a slightly better experience, with less of a rules teach, and so why would I pick Bitoku over Coimbra? But I still appreciate and like Bitoku nonetheless. Then from there, we're going to have another newish one with expansion over here, and that's Atlantis Rising Monstrosities over here. That's the expansion to Atlantis Rising with the base game of Atlantis Rising. This is another one that's going to be an easy addition to level up the cheat library. Both are present over here. I think Atlantis Rising Monstrosities does a decent amount to elevate the base game of Atlantis Rising. It gives you a bunch of things to make the game harder and things to make the game easier, and if you like Atlantis Rising, I think Monstrosities is just an easy addition to the experience. Ultimately, for me, Atlantis Rising was always a game that I liked, but didn't, vie up as much as when you're judging it against games like Pandemic or The Loop. I prefer other cooperative, beat back the horrors experiences. I think Atlantis Rising has too much dice rolling for me, and as much as there are ways to mitigate and plan and all these different things, I enjoy Atlantis Rising, but it's not a keeper for me. Monstrosities, to me, I was curious whether that would change my opinion or not, and ultimately, it does improve Atlantis Rising, but still, to me, is a game that there are other cooperative experiences I would pick over this. In other new stuff over here, we have, again, a mix of new and old. We have Libris and the expansion Expanded Archives. This is one I'm actually fairly disappointed by over here. See, Libris over here, this is one... Box is knocking over there. This one I was a little disappointed by in the sense that... I lost my train of thought. I played the original Libris way back in the day, and I really liked the premise of the book sorting while still having problems with the rest of the game experience. And so I was really hoping the expansion would do that, or the revised edition plus expansion would enhance the experience for me, but ultimately it left me in exactly the same place. I still appreciate the same things I did about the game last time, although I will say the addition of relics that you can slot into your bookshelves, that I really like. You see, in the game, you're basically trying to create a set of alphabetically ordered books, and so you're drafting books using different locations, and you're also going to be using in the expansion, you have these additional artifacts you can kind of put into your bookshelf that I really enjoy those. Those are an extra nice addition to the game. Ultimately, my main problem with the game is still present, which is the locations are just overwhelming and not interesting enough. So you're constantly reading text and adding locations, and it doesn't feel like a tight worker placement game so much as like a, hey, here's a dozen things and just go and do stuff and whatever. It doesn't feel rewarding in the game. It just feels like the puzzle of how to score and optimize your books, that's fun, but the engine and how they made you do it, that doesn't work for me as well. So still good enough, again, in terms of that conversation about good enough or not, these are easily still good enough to level up a cheat library, but just not ones that I feel the need to own in my house personally. Then we have some oldies over here, Targi and the expansion over here. And this is one that I'm very torn on because I've never played the expansion to Targi, and no, I'm not going to play it. I'm torn. I see, there are so many games that are amazing out there. There's so many games that are well-liked, that are excellent experiences, and Targi is an excellent two-player worker placement game with blocking and vying for your own goals. It is very, very well done, and I highly recommend it. You can check it out on Board Game Arena as well to see if it's a game for you. But it's all about trying to line up your workers on these edge cards and then taking the edge cards and the intersections of where you go. It requires lots of planning, lots of understanding how to block the other players. Very well done game. The expansion I would love to play, but I just haven't. I've had the expansion for like 3 years now. I haven't played it. I don't know why, but I do know that I'm more inclined to pull out and play Targi on Board Game Arena just because it's easier. And because of the fact that it's present on Board Game Arena, I haven't gotten around to the expansion. I think I pulled it out one time with the hope of playing it, but didn't actually play it. This one's actually all blinged out. It's got inserts and got upgraded tokens. It's got a lot of upgraded tokens. I'm having second thoughts now. We got the metal bits from BGG. We got these little workers over here, 3D printed. I had someone sent me these over here, which are phenomenal over here. You have these acrylic tiles. Honestly, the blinged out copies make me have second thoughts over here, but I shall remain strong. If I'm not playing, it doesn't matter how blinged out it is. It's still a blinged out game that I'm not playing. And I do play Targi, but I play it on Board Game Arena less frequently just because it's a good game. It's a very good game, but I don't think, again, if you're balancing just limited time, limited space, this is one where I can get my plays in on Board Game Arena. Then we have over here, we have Robo Rally. Robo Rally, another new one from Renegade Games, another re-implemented edition over here. I like Robo Rally. I always have. It's always been a good time, and that's still true nowadays. Ultimately, for me, in this vein, I would rather play games like Quirky Circuits, which I no longer have, but I do like Quirky Circuits, and I'd rather play games like Mechs vs. Minions, which is always over my head over here, and I should eventually finish Mechs vs. Minions, but I haven't done so. But I like the action programming that is Robo Rally. I like the puzzle of what the game is trying to provide. Ultimately, I feel that I get that experience better in other games. I feel it shows its age to a degree, so it's a good game, but not necessarily a great game. Then we have over here, let's move this one off to the side, we'll come back to it. We have over here, let's go another small box one. we have a Cardline Animals. This is a great game in the same timeline series of games to an extent. You have a bunch of animals. What you're doing is you're going to have a handful of animals. You have to weigh them up against each other. Either, I can't remember all the categories, but there's the weight of the animal, the length of the animal, and maybe the lifespan of the animal. I don't remember for sure. Let me see if it says on the back of the box. It says... Dun, 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 dun. What about the Herman's turret? It's small and light, can live a very long time. I think that is what it is. I think it's lifespan, weight, and length. And you're going to be trying to put them into a card line of where you think they go. Oh, does an elephant live longer than a tiger? I don't know. How long does an average elephant live for? How long does an average cat live for? You're lining up these things in a very fun experience that I probably should keep. I probably should keep this one. I just haven't played it in so long. You see, Timeline is a great system. I feel like my kids would like this, though. I'm keeping this one. This is being kept. I'm sorry. No, it's Cardline has not been played in a very long time, but I think it might be out of sight, out of mind. You see, I think my kids would really enjoy it, and so now I'm gonna pull it out and play with them this week, and we'll see what happens. Maybe next week, next month, if it's still here. That means my kids didn't go for it. But I was gonna say that Cardline's a great game, but I'd rather play Timeline. I still have all the Timeline, which is true. But when I think of it from what my kids would enjoy. We'll talk about Cardline next month, or not at all. Depends what happens. Then we have over here, we have Head Trip from Cards Against Humanity. Head Trip is a cooperative game of trying to get in, well, not each other's heads so much as the heads of the game. You're basically going to have questions and then a roll. So you might have a question being like, and it's a multiple choice question, but it might be like, what kind of drink would you have? And it gives a list of 4 different drinks. And then also, you have a roll card, and the roll card might be, I don't know, what's interesting? I don't know. Taylor Swift after her Eras tour. I don't think it's actually on there, but it's a good one. So Taylor Swift when she just finished her Eras tour, and so now you have a personality, and it could be a celebrity, it could be someone who's just woke up tired from sleeping, just someone who just woke up from sleeping 26 hours. Like it could be that kind of card, but you have a headspace that you're trying to get into, and then a question that you think that person would answer, and then everyone at the table has to guess what answer you would have picked, and then you move forward or don't move forward depending on how other players answered. So it's a cooperative game of trying to collectively and similarly match up in how you got into this character's head. It's a fun system. I like the concept of it. Very intriguing. It forces you to think a little differently. For me, it's an easy pass just because as much as I did enjoy playing through it, it's typical Cards Against Humanity where like every single question is, or I'd say 97% of the questions in the game are just completely dirty for the sake of being dirty, which may make the game more fun for some people. For me, I'm not against things being a certain style of humor, but I want it to add to the experience and not to just be that for the sake of being that. And this feels like a good premise, once again thrown into like, hey, let's just, make everything a dirty joke and that's funny, right? Which doesn't work for me. Again, it might work for you. No judgment. To me, that doesn't work for me on its own. I need things to be a little bit more clever than that, if that makes sense. Then we have over here, we have Vengeance Roll and Fight. Episode 2 over here. This is a roll and fight experience as you charge a bunch of rooms, check off various boxes, upgrade your character, and then try to go ahead and just win by efficiently rolling your dice and assigning them as to how you move through the rooms and progress in this game. It is a fun experience. For me, ultimately, the only thing this has wrong with it is that there are other roll and fights I appreciate more, and I already always have too many roll and fights than what I have time to play. And so I like Vengeance Roll and Fight. It's good. Just when I'm weighing it up against which roll and fights I'll keep, I'd rather keep Twilight Inscription or Hadrian's Wall over Vengeance Roll and Fight. That's the only real complaint I have. Then we have Power Plants, and this is a hard one. This is a hard one for me. I've been eyeing, so for context, you don't see every month the games that I eye. Meaning every month when I'm choosing what games are leaving the collection, I wander on my shelves, and there's always the easy ones. There's the ones that, hey, I just reviewed Ex Libris, is it staying or is it going? And that's always a conversation. A big part of what goes into my head is I want to keep everything that I like. Anything that I liked at all, I want to keep. I want to keep Glass Road, I want to keep Tribune, I want to keep Bitoku, I want to keep Kōhaku, I want to keep, Atlantis Rising, I want to keep, Episode 2 Vengeance Roll and Fight. I want to keep all these games. But I recognize that many games I want to keep, but I will not prioritize over the new stuff or the best stuff. I just won't. I always have new stuff, and I always have my favorites. And so, will a game be picked over my new end favorites? So, when I'm looking at something like Ex Libris, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, it's a good game. I want to Ex Libris less. So Ex Libris was an easier pass. But Atlantis Rising, I'm like, I want to keep it. The Monstrosity expansion does add more to the experience. I like it, so I want to play it. And then I'm like, nope, I'm gonna play the loop over it. So why would I keep this? I'd always play the loop. I'll play Tesseract over it. So there's that decision space. And then you look at games that are on your shelf already, games that are already present, that have already been mentally slotted into games that are staying. And so I look around my room on a regular basis and I try to think through what's going to leave. And so I always give certain games the stinky eye, and you don't necessarily see that because, like right now, just to give you an example, Empire's Age of Discovery. That's a game that might show up at some point on this list because for months now, I've been giving it the stinky eye of I haven't played that game in like 3 or 4 years. I think it's a great game. Glenn Drover's Empire's Age of Discovery, I think it's amazing. But I haven't played it in 3 to 4 years, so when do I get rid of it? And I constantly give it that stinky eye, but you don't know that because it doesn't show up on this video. Power Plants have been getting the stinky eye for like 6 months now. I think Power Plants is excellent, and this deluxe copy of the game is excellent. This one, by the way, just for the record, this one's not eligible to be given away. This is like one of the things I let myself do, which I cheat a little bit, is I let myself give a game to the Level Up Retreat library specifically because I'm like, well, I can always pull it back if I want it back, and that's true for Power Plants over here. I think this is an excellent game. It is better than like when I initially reviewed it. It's better than that because it's one that I constantly find myself wanting to play it more and pull it out and just like manipulate powers and abilities and move little tokens around. It is a KTBG board game, which means it's kids themed, but I think it's a little heavier than their typical KTBG line of games. It is mean, it is thinky, it has lots of powers and abilities. You're trying to optimize around how you do it. Even right now as I talk about it, I kind of don't want to give it... up. But I think I already saved. We're going to give it to Level Up Retreat Library. We're going to move on from it. This is one which is, the production quality on the deluxe edition is solid, and the game is just powers and abilities. The only real complaint I have against it, which is present, is the game is a little chaotic, and I don't feel it often comes down to as much being the best player. So it's just kind of like, hey, things happen, chaos happens, especially in a multiplayer experience. The way things play out, But I have fun playing it. I have fun trying to optimize around it, and so it's a hard one for me, but ultimately Power Plants, it's a strong recommendation, but that happens. The games that I wrestle with the most are strong recommendations. They are games that I just have to make hard choices on, and it is what it is. Although, speaking of a slightly easier choice this time, we have the Castles of Burgundy, which is my second sheet. This is not actually leaving. I just have Castles of Burgundy from Awakened Realms, and now this can go ahead and leave. And I have to check if the library has one. But either way, Castles of Burgundy, this will be moving on because I just don't need another Castles of Burgundy. That's the conversation here. There's nothing more complicated than that. There's nothing more sinister. It's a great game. I recommend the Castles of Burgundy in spades. I have played it over 50 times this year alone, between playing it online on BGA and between playing the new version from Awakened Realms. It is a game that gets a lot of playtime in my house. Although, in slightly less fun news, Bus is leaving the collection as well. Bus is fantastic, make no mistake. In fact, Bus is a Splotter game that's leaving, as is Indonesia. I think Splotter games for me are just harder games to table, and that's true for Bus and for Indonesia, despite the fact that I have played both of them and think both of them are fantastic. Food Chain Magnet, on the other hand, that one still lives, and Roads and Boats is still in my collection, although I haven't actually played it, so I don't know if we can really count that. But I got rid of Antiquity like last month or whatever it is, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I got rid of Antiquity because same problem. I find that some Splotter games are better than others, and some do and don't get played, and Food Chain Magnet is still my favorite one. But I think Indonesia is incredible. I think Bus is incredible. They are both very, very good games that ultimately there are other slightly lighter games that I'll pull out and play. Not light games, but I find that I'd rather play a Coimbra, I'd rather play a Whistle Mounter, and an Apiary, an Expeditions. There's so many other Euro games that I'd rather pull out on table. Revive I really enjoy as well, that are just a little bit less thinky. And some of that comes down to the interaction. The interaction in Bus, the interaction in Antiquity, the interaction in Food Chain Magnet. Those have high degrees of interaction in incredibly complex, incredibly well done games. These are incredible experiences. Like, they're good experiences. I cannot recommend them enough. They are phenomenal games that I recognize I'm not playing as much as I would like to, and so it's time to say goodbye reluctantly to them. And then we have Lockup. Lockup and the expansion. This one is a fun game system that I like, but ultimately I don't feel that I need to justify holding on to as much. I think Lockup is a very good game system, and I think that I like it. I like Lockup. It's a ton of work games. It's good. I've enjoyed playing through it, but this one falls more in the category of a game like Atlantis Rising. I want to keep it. I want to hold on to it, but I recognize I'm not going to prioritize it over other games. Which brings me to the last game on the list, which is not the most, heart-wrenching, not by a long shot. Honestly, the most heart-wrenching might be Power Plants, because Bus and Indonesia are so much better, but like I know that they don't get tabled as often, and I'd rather play Food Chain Magnet. Power Plants is feels like it's so accessible and whatever. Moving on though, we have Horizon Zero Dawn as our very last title over here. Horizon Zero Dawn from Steamforged Games. This is a very, I was going to say excellent game, but it's not an excellent game. It's a promising game. Horizon Zero Dawn is a promising game. There's a lot of things in Horizon Zero Dawn that I really enjoy. There's a lot of concepts that are really well executed. And it's a game that I've played now maybe 4 or 5 times because I kept diving back into it, hoping that I'd get a slightly different experience out of it. But I think Horizon Zero Dawn, my biggest problem with it comes down to the fact that the semi-cooperative mode has problems that are semi-cooperative problems, and the cooperative mode is a walk in the park. And that means that as much as I like the premise of what the game is offering, ultimately, it's not one that I pull out and table because it's not one that I pull out on the table. That's ultimately what it is on this one, unfortunately. And so that's where we are. That's where we are on these games. We have 23-ish games. 2 or so that are cheating. Again, Hanamikoji and Castles of Burgundy not really leaving. They're being replaced by newer versions. And then the rest of them are going. As much as I am sad about some of these, some ones that have been around for quite some time, some new ones, some ones that I'm on the fence about. There's a lot of good games on this table right now. But good games just aren't enough. I have a different video planned. May have already gone up. I don't know when, but basically saying like a 3.5 is not a recommendation, which it isn't. A 3.5 is not a recommendation. A 3.5 is a good game rating wise, a 3.5 out of 5 or 7 out of 10 if you're doing that. But like, it's not a recommendation. It is a acknowledgement that the game is good, that the game is fun, but I'm still going to recommend the games that are better over those. A lot of these games are going to be 3.5s for me. A lot of these games are going to be good games that I just... Good is not good enough. There are so many games. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. What's the hardest game you've gotten rid of recently? What's the hardest choice you've made as far as maintaining or managing or just trying to keep your collection in check in general? I'm curious. And as always, I hope you have a good one.